She thought the nursery was the safest room in the house, a place of soft light and whispered promises. But when a hidden phone began to vibrate beneath the crib, her marriage cracked open in a single breath. A stranger's voice slipped through the line, trembling with fear. And in that moment, love became suspicion, and safety became a question no one wanted answered.
Hello, my friends. I am Olivia, and this is Olivia's Love Stories. I hope you enjoy this story. I used to believe that if I kept our home quiet enough, gentle enough, nothing bad could find us. Our mornings followed a rhythm I trusted, the hush of dawn through sheer curtains, the hum of the kettle, the soft rise and fall of my baby's breathing in the nursery. I needed that rhythm. After years of trying, of loss spoken about only in doctors' offices and parked cars, I needed proof that life could finally be simple, safe, ours. My husband, Daniel, fit into that picture perfectly. He was steady in the way calm men are, never rushed, never loud. He worked consulting contracts, the kind of job that never made sense but always paid the bills. When I asked questions, he smiled and kissed my forehead, and I let love fill in the gaps logic couldn't reach. I needed to believe that the man who held our daughter at night had no shadows left to hide. That afternoon, the air in the nursery felt thicker than usual, as if the room were holding its breath. I was kneeling by the crib, tucking a loose thread back into the quilt my mother had sewn, when I felt a faint vibration under my knee. At first, I thought it was my imagination. New mothers imagine everything. But then it came again, a low, insect-like tremor, persistent and wrong. I lifted the mattress. Nothing. I checked the drawer beneath the crib where we kept extra diapers and a forgotten rattle. That's when I saw it. Black glass catching the light, tucked behind the wooden rail like it had been placed there deliberately. A phone. Not mine, not Daniel's, no case, no pictures, no warmth from recent use. It felt like touching something that didn't belong to my life. My heart began to knock against my ribs, louder than my daughter's mobile turning slowly overhead. I told myself there was an explanation, there always was, but my hands shook as I pressed the power button, and the screen bloomed awake with a single incoming call. No name, just a number I didn't recognize. I should have put it down. I should have waited. Instead, I answered. For a second, there was only breathing on the other end. Fast, uneven, like someone running through darkness. Then a woman's voice slipped through, barely louder than a secret meant for a confessional. Is he gone? The nursery seemed to shrink around me, the walls leaning in, the light dimming as if the house itself was listening. I opened my mouth to speak, to ask who she was, what she meant, but before a single word could escape, the floorboard behind me creaked. And I realized Daniel was standing in the doorway. Daniel's shadow stretched across the nursery floor before I could turn around. It pooled at my feet, long and unfamiliar, like it belonged to a stranger who had memorized my husband's shape. I pressed the phone tighter against my ear, my pulse roaring so loudly I was sure the woman on the other end could hear it. "Who is this?" I whispered, though my eyes never left Daniel's face. His expression changed in a way I had never seen before. Not anger, not confusion, something sharper, controlled. His gaze dropped to the phone in my hand, and for a split second, the calm man I married vanished. The air between us felt charged, like metal before a storm. "Olivia," he said softly, stepping into the room and closing the door behind him. The click of the latch sounded final. "Hang up." The woman on the line gasped, a sound like a sob swallowed at the last moment. "You said," she began, panic spilling into her voice, "you said she didn't know."
My knees weakened and I sank onto the edge of the rocking chair. The mobile above the crib continued its slow rotation, tiny stars circling like they were mocking me with their innocence. My daughter slept through it all, her tiny fist curled near her cheek, trusting a world that suddenly felt dangerous. "What is she talking about?" I asked. My voice didn't sound like my own. It sounded hollow. "Daniel, who is she?" He didn't answer right away. Instead, he reached out and gently took the phone from my hand, his fingers brushing mine with a familiarity that now felt rehearsed. "I told you not to call this number unless it was an emergency," he said into the phone, his tone low, commanding, utterly unlike the man who forgot where he left his keys. There was silence on the other end, then a broken whisper. "They found me." Daniel closed his eyes, just for a moment. When he opened them again, they held a weight I had never been allowed to see. "I'll handle it," he said. "Do not move, do you understand?" He waited, listening, then ended the call and turned the phone face down as if that could contain whatever had just escaped. My chest tightened. "You'll handle what?" I demanded. "You're hiding phones in our daughter's room, Daniel. A woman is calling you terrified, asking if you're gone. Tell me this isn't what I think it is." He knelt in front of me, his hands hovering in the air like he wasn't sure he still had permission to touch me. "It's not an affair," he said quickly. "I swear to you, Olivia, I would never do that to you, to us." "Then what is it?" I asked. "Because whatever it is, you brought it into our home." He looked toward the crib, toward our sleeping child, and something in his face fractured. "I was trying to keep you safe," he said. "That's all I've ever tried to do." Laugh bubbled up in my throat, sharp and hysterical. "By lying to me?" "Yes," he said. And then, after a beat, "by being someone you didn't need to be afraid of." The room felt unbearably quiet. I could hear the clock ticking in the hallway, counting seconds I suddenly wished I could take back. "Who are you really?" I asked, "because I don't think you're just a consultant." He exhaled slowly, like a man stepping to the edge of a cliff. "There are people who believe I owe them something," he said, "and if they ever find you or her—" His voice broke, just slightly. "That can't happen." Before I could respond, the hidden phone vibrated again on the dresser, relentless this time, insistent. Daniel looked at it, then at me. "They're closer than I thought," he said. And that was when I knew our ordinary life was already over. The phone kept vibrating, a steady pulse that felt synchronized with my heartbeat. Daniel didn't answer it this time. He simply stood there, eyes fixed on the small, dark rectangle, like it was a ticking promise. I wrapped my arms around myself, suddenly aware of how thin the walls of our home really were. "Start talking," I said. My voice was steadier than I felt. "No half-truths, no protecting me. I deserve to know who I married." He nodded once, as if accepting a verdict. Then he moved to the window and checked the street below, parting the curtain just enough to look out. The gesture was practiced, professional. My stomach twisted. "My real name isn't Daniel," he said quietly, still facing the glass. "Daniel is the name of the man I'm allowed to be with you." The words landed slowly, each one heavier than the last. "Allowed by who?" I asked. "By the people who made sure I lived long enough to meet you," he replied. He turned back to me, and for the first time since we met, there was no softness left in his eyes, only resolve. "I used to work in counterintelligence. Off the books. The kind of work that doesn't end when you resign." I laughed again, but this time no sound came out. "That's not possible," I said. "You burn toast. You cry at sad movies." I learned how to do that, he said. I learned how to be ordinary. He told me about a life that felt stitched together from someone else's nightmares. False passports, dismantled networks, people who vanished because he helped make them visible. The woman on the phone was named Mara. She had been an informant, a frightened young analyst who uncovered something she was never supposed to see. Daniel, no, my husband, had smuggled her out, rewritten her existence and hidden her where no one would think to look. They found a piece of the trail, he said. If they find her, they'll find me. And if they find me— His eyes flicked back to the crib. He didn't finish the sentence. My need to feel safe warred with my need to believe him. So you hid a phone in the nursery? I asked. That was your best plan? It's the only place no one would search, he said softly. No one suspects danger where a baby sleeps. The front of the house groaned suddenly, the low rumble of a car slowing down, tires crunching against gravel. Daniel stiffened. He crossed the room in 2 strides and lifted our daughter from the crib, cradling her with a tenderness that shattered me. Pack a bag, he said urgently. Only what you need for 1 night. 1 night where? I asked, my hands numb. Somewhere they can't reach you, he said. I was hoping you'd never have to know any of this. The doorbell rang. Not a polite chime, a firm, deliberate press that echoed through the house like a warning. Daniel met my eyes, and in them I saw the truth at last. Not fear for himself, but terror of losing us. Whatever happens, he said, lowering his voice to a whisper meant only for me, you have to trust that I chose you because I wanted a life worth protecting. The doorbell rang again, and then someone knocked. The knock was measured, patient, not the sound of someone in a hurry, but of someone who knew time was on their side. Daniel shifted our daughter against his chest, instinctively angling his body between her and the door, as if wood and paint were the only things standing between us and the end of everything. I'll answer, I said suddenly. He turned to me sharply. Olivia, no.
They're here for you, I said, my voice trembling but certain. If they see you holding a baby, if they see fear, they'll know. Let me do this.
For a long second, he searched my face. Then he nodded once, reluctantly, and disappeared down the hall toward the back of the house, moving with a silence that made my chest ache. I wiped my hands on my jeans and walked to the front door, every step feeling like it echoed too loudly. When I opened it, 2 people stood on our porch, a man in a neat gray coat and a woman with eyes too sharp to be kind. They smiled the way professionals do, polite, empty. Mrs. Carter? The man asked. We're looking for your husband. My husband's at work, I said. The lie slid out easier than I expected. Is something wrong? The woman's gaze drifted past me, taking in the family photos on the wall, the soft blanket folded over the couch. We just have a few questions, she said. It won't take long. Behind me, the house felt unbearably quiet. I imagined Daniel slipping out the back, imagined the world narrowing to a single decision, stay or run. I thought of the phone hidden in the nursery, of Mara's terrified whisper, of the life my husband had built with such careful hands. He won't be back until tomorrow, I said. If you leave a card? The man raised his hand gently. Ma'am, we know he's here. The words struck like ice water. I felt my pulse in my throat, but I didn't step aside. Instead, I smiled, the same smile I'd practiced in mirrors, the one that said, nothing to see here. Then you also know, I said, that he hasn't broken any laws since he moved to this address. The woman's eyes narrowed. And how would you know that? Because he told me, I almost said. Because I chose to believe him. Instead, I leaned against the doorframe and met her stare. Because if he had, I said quietly, you wouldn't be knocking. Silence stretched between us, taut as a wire. Somewhere in the distance, a dog barked. The man glanced at his partner, then back at me, reassessing. "We'll be in touch," he said finally, handing me a card. "Tell him we stopped by." I closed the door before my knees could give out. Minutes later, Daniel was in front of me, breathless, our daughter still asleep against his shoulder. He set her gently back in the crib and pulled me into his arms, holding on like he might never let go. "You didn't run," he whispered. "I didn't marry a ghost," I said into his chest. "I married a man who tried to protect us. Next time, we do it together." The phone in the nursery buzzed once more, then went silent. For the first time since I found it, I wasn't afraid of what it meant. Because love, I learned that day, isn't about living without secrets. It's about choosing who you're willing to face them with.